Okay, this is part two of chapter three, and now we're going to be speaking about externalities. This is something I've spent some time on in both my macro and microeconomics courses. And what we see here is a case of something called a negative externality. So an externality is the uncompensated impact of an activity upon a bystander. The key word is bystander or the third party. Now, and this what we see here is a case of the negative externality. So if the person was looking strictly at their own private costs, it would lead to too much production relative to what society would like. And you can see here the private costs in terms of flights. Um, they're wanting to fly Q sub P and pay and charge P sub P. But these flights are causing a negative externality upon another party. Now, your book gives the example of flights into, let's say, Quebec City. So these flights into Quebec City are fine for the passengers, but they're having an impact on the serenity around the St. Louis River and the Chateau Frontenac. If you've been to Quebec City, it's a very famous chateau, 17th century. It loses some of its charm as a plane is flying over. There are bountiful examples in Hawaii um, with planes and helicopters flying over areas, or even on the mainland, you have planes flying over areas, and it certainly impacts in terms of the noise of said airplane. So, so if the firm were to take into consideration the social cost of their actions, they would reduce the output and or most likely charge a higher price. Um, there would be less flights into Quebec City, or they would choose another route. There would be, again, less flights in other locales, and or choosing another route. The key remedy is to make producers take the social cost of their action into consideration into their production decisions. Okay, and our next slide is, I'm sure, going to be positive externalities. Here we go. Now we have positive externalities, and in this case, the person producing the product gives benefits to society outside of the personal benefit to the person. The product itself has a beneficial impact. Your book talks about the example of honeybees creating honey for beekeepers, but also pollinate fruit trees for farmers within let's say, a 7-mile radius of the hive. So the benefits are going not just to the beekeeper, but to the farmers around. So the farmers would like to see not just the marginal benefit curve private, but the marginal benefit curve social. But they're getting the benefit, but they're not necessarily paying for it. It's going to the beekeeper. So they would like a higher amount, but maybe they're not willing to pay for it. Okay. Now the social marginal benefit curve is above the private marginal benefit curve. So society and or the farmer would want to see a higher amount of the good, creating the positive externality. Now in this case, government should give incentives to produce more of the good that produces positive externalities. Whereas in the previous case, negative externalities, the idea was perhaps to tax and or do other things. In the case of positive externalities, you want to incentivize more production. You may even want to give a subsidy to the producer doing it. And I just mentioned the case of the beekeeper. Okay, so I think I'll end things here and we'll do our third section, which is correcting for externalities.